Hello, everyone. Welcome to our call with Roger Drummer. And tonight we were talking about stress and cardiovascular disease. I've heard Roger speak about this many, many times. It's extremely important. If you don't know, heart disease and heart attacks specifically are the number one cause of death in this country. And it's extremely important, especially as we age, to keep our hearts healthy. And Roger's going to talk a lot about that tonight and how to do that. So, Roger, I'm going to turn this over to you. I don't know exactly the whole format, but tell us how to keep our hearts healthy.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm really fascinated by heart disease. That might shock people that I'm fascinated by it, but it's something I paid attention to, since the 80s. And the reason I was paying attention to it in the 80s was because I was doing triathlons. And in triathlon training at that time, because I didn't have a trainer and there weren't a lot of books written out about it, I was pushing myself to extreme levels every single day, exercising. There was at least twice a week I'd ride a bike over 100 miles, and a lot of that involved going over a very high mountain. And so it was very strenuous and very stressful. And so I always made sure to take some nutrients for my heart and paid attention to it. And it served me well because I never had a problem with it. And the last time I got tested for my cholesterol and all the other parameters that go with it and got my little judgment on the state of my heart, they told me I had less than 0.5% chance to have a heart attack in the next 10 years. I don't know how they come up with that, but I was happy with that number, and so, it's just one of the things I pay attention to because, again, heart disease, usually the first symptom is a heart attack, and that's not something I ever want to experience, and I doubt if anybody else does. So shortly after I got into health, the first statin drugs were introduced into the market. And if you all know, statin drugs are the number one way that they treat heart disease, or what they term heart disease. Basically, when you go in to see a doctor, they'll ask you what your cholesterol is, they'll do a test, and if you fall within a certain range with your total cholesterol, then they'll suggest a statin drug for you. It's just standard procedure. In fact, there's a lot of doctors who would just like it if everybody in the world just went on a statin drug. And we know now that statin drugs have a lot of side effects, and they're really not even meant for probably 80% of the people that take them. Now, that's not a number I've made up. That comes straight from a lot of leading cardiologists say that statin drugs are actually a very good product. It's just that they're overprescribed. And that happens a lot in all fields of health. Something you think is really great for everybody, and then it gets overused, and it actually causes other issues. So when I got into the whole health field, heart disease was the number 2 killer in America. And so, it's fascinating to me now, today, almost 30-some years later, with all the statin drugs that have been on the market and all the drugs and the focus that we've put on cholesterol as the big killer in heart disease, that heart disease has jumped from number 2 to number 1. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't make any sense to me, how you can spend upward of $20 billion a year on a particular drug and trying to control heart disease and have it come out to be now the number 1 killer in America. That right there kind of points out the whole issue with heart disease and how we've gotten away from just looking at lifestyle and looking at diet and looking at our stressors and what's really going on in our life, as opposed to just throwing one pill at someone that disrupts a certain function in their body so they don't produce as much cholesterol. And that's really the problem with most drugs. They're interfering with an enzyme that your body produces in your liver to make cholesterol. And so you have less cholesterol in your system. But if you look at all the statistics of most of the people that have heart attacks, in fact, in England, the latest studies show that 2/3 of the people that showed up at the hospital with a heart attack actually had normal cholesterol levels. So even though cholesterol is involved in a heart attack, it's involved in certain processes, it can't really be looked at as the cause because so many other things are going on. So reducing one chemical really doesn't make that big of an inroad into your health. And if 2/3 of the people expressing heart attacks show up at the hospital and there's nothing wrong with their cholesterol. You have to look a little deeper at what's actually going on. And so, one of the things that I always look at, and I've always looked at this in my life, especially since I got into Chinese herbology, is how stress affects the body. And stress plays a huge role in any chronic illness, but especially heart disease. And it's very simple once you look at the basic processes of what's actually going on in a stress response as to why that would actually affect your heart. And the problem with the stress response, again, is not that you're having one. It's just that most people don't recover well from it, and it becomes something we call chronic stress. So you're experiencing the same level of stress all day long. It might get triggered 8 to 10 times. And because you're in that stressful situation for so long every day, your body kind of adapts to thinking that it's a normal process. And so you just stay in a kind of heightened stress response all day long, and you don't get much relief from it. Basically, you lose the feedback loop on your stress response, meaning that in a normal, typical stress response, you have it, your body's flooded with sugar and hormones and all these things that prime you for fight or flight, and yet because you're locked into it all the time, you lose that chemical release that's supposed to tell you it's over, and then you don't get the balancing hormones to come out and change your body into a receptive mode where it starts to rebuild its own energy and shut everything off. And that's the problem with chronic stress and what's actually going on. Now, when it happens with your heart and you're in this heightened state all day long, it has a disastrous effect on your whole cardiovascular system. And it's real easy to picture this. And I love this one book that I began reading years and years ago when I was studying stress. There was a book out called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers by Robert Sapolsky. Now, the title itself attracted me to the book, but what was so great about it, he just simply explained stress in a way that anybody could understand and how it just alters normal functioning of the body. And when you realize how the normal function is disrupted, it's really easy to figure out why it's so bad for you and why, if it's happening every day, you just never get to go back into a state of homeostasis or a state of relaxed energy where your body functions in a normal pattern. With heart disease, basically what happens in a stress response, your body's flooded with adrenaline and sugar because you need this sugar for all your muscles to get primed and your brain to get primed because you're supposed to be fighting something to the death or running away. And for either activity, you need a lot of sugar and you need a lot of adrenaline because it has to happen right now. Well, the problem with that is that most people, when they have that response today, they're sitting behind the wheel of their car, they're sitting at their desk looking at their computer, or they're involved in some other activity that literally does not burn up any energy at all. So all this energy release that you have out into your body is basically there not being used for anything. And so what happens with your body then? Well, it can't clear it out because you have all this stress response going on, so your body doesn't produce much hormone. It doesn't produce much insulin hormone to actually take this excessive sugar out of your system. So it just stays really high and really elevated, which in and of itself, elevated blood sugar like that, puts you in a position to where you're 2 or 3 times more likely to have a heart attack or a stroke when you're in that position. So this is happening all day long. You're not really clearing it out because you're not physically moving at all. You're at work sitting around and watching your computer and getting upset at people that send you things, or upset at people in the office, or it's happening in traffic, or maybe it happened at home with your family before you left. But all these things just compile into this stressful situation. And now you have this full-on stress attack during the day. And your body's flooded with all these hormones and energy. And then what really makes it bad is that excessive stress hormone that you're not shutting off and clearing out. That causes your heart to beat more forcefully every time it beats. And when it does that, it sends out an abnormally high amount of blood, more than you normally need through your whole body, because still it thinks you're in this fight or flight situation, right? And you're going to need that energy, and it's channeling it all out to your extremities, away from your internal organs, because you're supposed to be fighting, but you're not. And so this extra force that it puts on your entire system affects every single artery and every single little pathway by which blood travels through your entire system. Every little capillary experiences this pressure at a higher rate than normal. And so at every little juncture where the blood is moving and taking different directions, there's an extra stress on those particular capillaries, arteries, whatever those tributaries are that this blood is moving through. And that extra pressure causes your body to create some tension around it to hold it in place. And then as that goes all the way through your system and then comes back to your heart, it comes back more forcefully because of the tension around all those situations. And then it hits your heart harder than it's actually supposed to, harder than it would be if you were just relaxed and having a great time. And so when that comes back and it hits your heart, it's a stressful event to the chamber of your heart. And eventually, over a long period of time, that can cause an abnormal growth of cells in your heart, and your heart starts to become enlarged. So these are all things that just happen during a stress response. The easiest way to kind of see what this is like, or to picture it in your mind, is think about your garden hose you have out in your yard. You know, you're out in your yard spraying water on your grass or whatever. Everybody has the same size garden hose. It's normal for everybody that has a house to have one. But imagine if the fire department pulled up at your house with a fire hose and they wanted to hook it up to your garden hose. And they wanted to spray all that water at that pressure through your garden hose to deal with a fire. That's basically what's happening when your body's under chronic stress. It's that much more pressure trying to force an abnormal amount of fluid through a very small opening. And it just doesn't work. Something's going to bust. Something's going to break down. Your body cannot put up with that for too long of a time, especially if it's underfed, undernourished, and doesn't have the right nutrition in it to withstand all that extra inflammation that's going on and all that pressure. So the best thing you can do then is to do something that deals with your stress. You know, in modern living today, you know, our stress is different. It's all about emotional issues. It's all about having mini stressors that keep us peaked in that moment all day long, as opposed to thousands of years ago, it was a wild animal or a fight, and once you got over it, there was nothing going on. So you basically relaxed and went back to normal. Well, we don't have that going back to normal moment anymore, and so we end up with these pressures all day long. And this is one of the reasons I got into just focusing on stress when I was an herbalist working in LA. It didn't take me long of dealing with people on a daily basis to see that almost every issue they had to do with their stress, and how stress, just like with your heart, messed up your digestion, it messed up your thinking, it messed up everything that was going on in your body, so that people were just walking around functioning at such a low level compared to what they could be if they were just relaxed and had less stress. And that's what kind of pushed me into this whole field of dealing with stress and making it my life's mission to create things that actually work on stress. Now, in Western medicine, what did they function on? They went after cholesterol. You know, they went after cholesterol drugs and changing cholesterol and how the cholesterol builds up in your body. And all those things are good to a certain extent. You should be, you know, intelligent about your diet and about your cholesterol levels, but it's just not about one big number, and it's just not about having one drug that brings it back in to balance. When you look at the effects of just the one statistic of 2/3 of the people have normal cholesterol that have heart attacks, you know that there's something wrong with the system. You have to look deeper into that as to what you can actually do on your own to prevent a reaction like a heart attack or strokes or even any type of imbalance. High blood pressure is just another part of that imbalance too. What can you actually do about that on your own? Well, they now know, they have tons of studies showing that if you just focus on 4 things, There was a study called the EPIC study. I love that name, EPIC, right? But the results were quite epic when they did it. They had 23,000 people that they just had them do 4 things. They said, don't smoke, exercise 3.5 hours a week, eat a healthy diet, and have healthy weight management. Now, what I loved about this is they didn't really define the diet. They just said eat a healthy diet. And this resulted in 81% fewer heart attacks. Think about that, 81%. Diabetes went down 93% in that group just by doing those 4 things. And again, what's so great about that is that it's all lifestyle and it's all things you can do on your own. And so you work that into your lifestyle, and you work this into your program along with doing something for stress, and then you've got kind of the best of both worlds. You're taking all these different approaches to just being in a position to have the best health you can possibly have, and actually to have a kind of a worry-free existence. Because if you can get yourself to the point to where you're healthy and feeling very vibrant and alive, you don't have to focus on your health so much. It becomes a habit, and these things just become things that you do all the time to keep you feeling great. And you don't worry about having all the things that go along with being involved in the medical system. This is something I like to tell people about and to really make it a point. If you pay attention to your own diet and your levels of stress and exercise a little bit, do these lifestyle changes, you don't have to get into the medical system. The medical system is really wonderful in certain regards. It's fantastic emergency medicine, especially if you're near a large city, you're somewhere where you have access to real medical care. The emergency medical system is mind-blowing, taking care of you after something happens. The problem is, on the flip side of that, because it's so drug dependent, is that it's now the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States is the medical system and using pharmaceutical drugs. And so you got to kind of look at the good part of it, that you have access to it, and you want to keep yourself in a state of health so you don't actually have to use the other part of it, right? And this is also what's amazing about how when you look at herbs in comparison to drugs, right? And I'm not saying you should replace all your drugs with herbs or anything like that. If you have a medical condition, you should be consulting your doctor. But just look at the way that they look at things like cholesterol, and where they focus on one class of drugs, everybody takes the same thing. That drug now has been shown to have an effect of actually lowering the amount of coenzyme Q10 that you can actually make, because it's the same enzyme that they lower that your body needs to make coenzyme Q10, which your heart cannot function without coenzyme Q10. It's a part of the whole cycle of making ATP, and every molecule and every cell of your heart needs a supply of coenzyme Q10, or it just won't function. Right? It also disrupts your liver's ability to make the type of fatty acid that your heart really loves to use for energy, and your brain loves to make it, use it for energy. It's called ketones. So it interrupts that process too. So on 2 different levels, it's actually messing with your cardiovascular health. And now there's actually warnings on drugs for that. But if you look at things like anti-stress herbs instead, in all my formulas, I use an herb called reishi mushroom. And reishi mushroom is a natural substance that has been shown to help regulate blood pressure. It's a natural substance that works on cholesterol. It prevents platelets from clumping, which is a big issue in heart disease. You have an herb called rhodiola, which has been shown in studies to lower something called CRP, which is C-reactive protein, which is a marker your liver makes for showing how much inflammation you have in your arteries and all over your body. So if it's lowering that marker, that means somewhere in your body, in your cardiovascular system, that herb is reducing or eliminating the inflammation you have. You have herbs like Hoshowu and reishi mushroom. They're both used to lower blood fat, and yet when we put them in our formulas, we don't even put them in there for that, right? We put them in there because they're great for your adrenals, they're great for building blood, they're really great for reducing stress hormone, they open up your mind and help you to think clear. All these things are happening, but then we have these other effects because they're a whole food that your body can use for numerous processes, because that's what your body does with whole food. It never really uses it for one particular thing. It feeds into how the body normally functions and keeps it functioning at a very high rate. And that's why you get this broad range effect out of all these herbs. So there's some really simple ways to actually maximize your life and your lifestyle so that you can pretty much try to avoid heart disease. They're not that hard. Stress is a biggie, and all the herbs I mentioned there, I use in my own particular stress products that I take every single day, Tianchi and Inner Peace. So here's some easy ways to control your own heart health. Number one is just eat whole food. Poor diet contributes more to heart disease and death than alcohol and tobacco. Think about that. We often think about how bad alcohol and tobacco are for your heart and for just general health in particular. Tobacco, for sure. If you're highly stressed, one of the worst things you can do is smoke tobacco. It constricts your arteries. And if you remember what I was just talking about with the garden hose and forcing all that water and pressure through it, you're already restricting your arteries by being stressed. And tobacco just makes it worse. There's countless studies that show that once you quit smoking, or if you, let's say you've had a cigarette and it constricts your arteries, within about 30 to 40 minutes after stopping, they start to open up again. Surprisingly, the same thing happens when you eat French fries. So there's a link between those two things, and what is it? They both cause inflammation immediately in your system, right? So no matter what diet you want to pick, if it's centered on whole food, you will get healthier. It doesn't matter where you start. If you're confused about it, try the Mediterranean diet. That diet seems to improve every single chronic disease that it's ever been studied with. And the Mediterranean diet, once you look at it, is so simple to go on and to actually stay with. And it's one of the tastier, healthier diets you could ever go on. So just try that out until you find one you like better, but make a commitment to actually change your diet. That's where everything starts. And number two, eliminate sugar. Clear back in the early 80s, when I first got into the health field and got a job at a health food store, one of the first books I ever read was a book called The Sugar Blues by William Duffy. It was published back in 1975, little paperback with a funky cover on it, but it was fascinating that in that book, clear back in the 70s, he was labeling sugar as the number one cause of heart disease, the number one cause of having too much cholesterol in your system. And you know what? He turned out to be right. What really makes me laugh is, like, 2 years ago, I read a study where this company did a clinical study and proved that sugar was related to cholesterol. And I was thinking, man, you could have saved a lot of money if you'd have just picked up that book. But the reality is, all that information, they just keep recycling, but nobody pays attention to it. We're still over consuming sugar, and it's up to about 150 pounds per person per year in this country. Think about that. And that's just one of the toxic foods that we can way over consume. So if you can get a handle on your sugar and get a handle on, your sugar cravings, you're taking a huge step into helping your body just start to process its own cholesterol and giving it a chance to actually move toward a state of health on its own. The other one is eat good fat. Do you know that in the beginning of the 20th century, the average American consumed 1 pound of processed oil a year? 1 pound. In the 50s, it was up to 50 pounds. In the year 2000, it was up to 75 pounds of processed oil. And most of that is what they call hydrogenated. It's been processed, and it's pretty much most of it is rancid. It's just included in baked goods, and it's a process they put it through by which it eliminates the odor from it and makes it stable to the point where it can be, used for years and years and years before they have to get rid of it, right? So it makes it completely unusable by the human body for human health, right? So But in the year 2000, 75 pounds a year. How can your body process 75 pounds of processed oil and 150 pounds of sugar in a year? That really adds up to heart disease, what we're talking about tonight. You know that in the years between 1961 and the year 2001, right, that's really where heart disease became a focus in this country, and they really started paying attention to how many heart attacks we were having and how it's become a big segment of the healthcare system, right? In that span of time, 90% of the calories consumed in America came from processed carbohydrates and processed oil. In other words, fast food, cookies, white flour, oil, sugar made up 90% of the diet. It's no wonder that heart disease became such a killer and why it became such a focus, because all of those things that I mentioned causes the actual cholesterol you produce to oxidize. And that is really one of the key reasons we have heart disease, is because the body is lacking in nutrients so badly, and we have so much stress, which causes even more inflammation, that all this oxidized fat becomes inflamed, it swells up and sticks to our arteries, and then just starts to the process of basically causing such intense inflammation that it becomes a clot, it becomes plaque, and you're on your way to having a heart attack and having heart disease. So if you want to consume really good fats and kind of reverse that condition, you stop eating all this processed oil, anything that says hydrogenated, and you consume fresh olive oil, coconut oil, and grass-fed butter if you can find it. Consuming cooked oils, like corn, canola, are just not healthy for you. They actually cause you to oxidize the cholesterol you produce. And so when you eat things like olive oil and coconut oil, especially in its natural state, if you're using coconut or olive oil, find a really good one you like to eat and just use it pouring it on your food. Don't cook with it. Pour it on rice, pour it on bread, pour it on whatever you like to eat it, salads. It's just an incredible thing. And if you have a good one, it tastes fantastic with a little bit of balsamic vinegar. And get in the habit of doing that, and it keeps you from becoming or having your arteries just become instantly inflamed, which is what happens when you consume polyunsaturated oils. Coconut oil is another one. It's a great fat. Your heart loves it for energy. Your brain loves it for energy. Move into that phase, and if you like butter, I mean, America is such a clearinghouse for just amazing foods and ingredients. You can find grass-fed butter, which has its own natural high states of fats and oils in it that are actually good for your heart. And so move toward doing that and just eliminate all these processed foods. Number 4, learn to regulate your blood sugar. If your meal spikes your blood sugar 30 to 40 points, it's not a good meal. The spike in blood sugar doubles your chances for a stroke or a heart attack. If anybody out there has diabetes or is pre-diabetic or has insulin resistance, this is especially important for you. You might want to go out and get a little blood meter and test yourself after each meal, and you might be shocked at how certain meals that you eat actually put you in a danger zone of having a heart attack, especially when you combine that with someone who's highly stressed all the time. One of the other aspects of being really stressed is that it shuts off your digestion. You don't have probably even close to 50% of your digestive energy when you're eating a meal when you're stressed. And almost everybody does this every single day. You don't pay attention to your food as much because you're on the go. You're eating while you're driving, which is basically just means you're not digesting at all because you're caught up in sympathetic nervous system. You're engaged in an activity while you're actually supposed to be paying attention to your food. And so that process of shutting off so much of your digestion means that you're not even absorbing what little nutrients you might actually have in your food. And so your body is really low on the nutrients it needs to process the chemicals and the chemical reactions you're having to stress and to protect your cells from damage. So you're getting this double whammy, this effect of not having enough nutrition and having way too much stress hormone and way too much inflammation. So you have to stop that. You have to pay attention to your blood sugar and pay attention to sitting down and becoming calm before you sit down and eat. Number 5, drink plenty of clean water. You know, fluoride and aluminum cause inflammation in your brain and your arteries. And that's basically in every single water system of almost every major city and a lot of smaller ones across America. If you're on a city water system, you really need to get some sort of water machine at home that filters your water and cleans it before you drink it. We do have the greatest water system in the entire world in the United States, but because of the nature of the fact that almost all the water that comes to your home has been used before quite a few times, it's been through somebody else's toilet and somebody else's kitchen and all these different processes, it has to be treated with chemicals. None of those chemicals are actually good for your health. It may keep you from dying within 24 hours of drinking the water, but long term, they don't add to your heart health. They're not good for your brain. So get a machine and drink clean water. Besides that, your blood needs to keep moving like a fresh water stream. You know, most people have blood that resembles ketchup more than it does water, and you want to reverse that situation. Number 6, you want to exercise to keep your blood moving, and it kind of fits in with drinking clean water. Exercise moves your blood. You don't want to have your system become completely stagnant. Just exercising and drinking clean water, the combination of that helps you to move things, helps you to produce new blood, keeps everything moving and the whole body flowing like a stream out in the wild. You know, number 7 is try donating blood every year. You know, people don't realize that there's a lot of studies showing that if you're in a danger zone, you're someone that's had heart attacks, or you're someone that it's actually, is worried about having a heart attack, you can get a lot of benefit just from donating blood. One of the reasons for that is just you have less volume and your body has to produce more to get back up. So you're producing new blood, you've lessened the volume, it's easier for it to move through your entire body. The other thing is if you have borderline high iron in your system, it actually eliminates that. And, you know, having excessive iron is not good for your brain, it's not good for your heart, especially bad for you if you have some sort of concussion injury, you end up having a mild heart attack. Having excessive iron in your system just adds to the inflammation, the type of destruction that might be happening if you go under one of those circumstances. Number 8, it's back to the main thing really is eliminate your stress. Chronic stress messes with everything, your diet, your cravings, your digestion, your cardiovascular health. It just throws everything off in your system. You have to be able to be on some sort of program that actually puts you in a position to where you not only feel better when you're experiencing stress, but you actually don't have as much stress. And you know, and this is one of the reasons why I love my own product, TNT, and one of the reasons why I make it, because it's not just designed to help you be more relaxed and deal with your stress. It's designed to peak your brain activity and to put you in a better mood and a better space so you actually don't have as much stress just because you see life differently. And that's really what stress is all about. Having an open mind, being able to dwell more up in the frontal lobe of your brain, which is all about imagination and creativity and focus, and being able to see what's really going on in life and what's going on around you. And when you're in that position on a continuous basis, you realize that half the things that you react to all the time you really shouldn't be reacting to. What you want to do is have a program that allows you to be someone who responds to the situations that they have in life and not react to them. If you're a reactor, you're just having a reaction to whatever is going on around you and creating stress responses all day long. If you're someone who can respond to the situation, you're basically just taking care of issues as they come up, and you're staying focused and feeling much better, and you're much more aware about your entire life, and after a while you just don't have anywhere near the amount of stress in your entire life that you used to have before. And that's one of the great things about Chinese herbs and about making formulas and using formulas like TNT. It's about putting you in a position to experience your life differently. And every single time you have that experience, life becomes a little easier, and it's easier for you to see the big picture and to handle stress better. So, Zach, I'm going to open it up there for questions if you want to do that.
Sure, we can do that. While we're doing that, let me just cue it up. If you have a question for Roger, you can hit *6 on your phone. Again, *6 if you have a question for Roger. And in the meantime, if you're new to the calls or new to hearing Roger Drummer speak about the herbs that he deals with or works with in his formulas, you can also go to HerbWorks.com. You can learn about TNT, the formula he just talked about, as well as Inner Peace, which is a world-renowned stress formula. Again, if you have a question for Roger, *6. And again, these calls are recorded. They will be posted. We'll be sending out an email probably tomorrow or Wednesday, and you'll be getting the link for not only this call, but all the past calls that we've done over the past several weeks. So, Roger, I don't see anyone online just yet.
Well, we'll wait for them. Someone has to have a question.
Yeah. But I know that, I've been drinking TNT for, 10 years now. And, I know that I definitely don't do all that you recommend on this call, but I'm in pretty incredible shape. And I relate that to the herbs just because of the stress reduction and the way that some of the herbs work on the energetics of the body. All right, here we got the first caller calling in from area code 916, ending in 9783.
Roger, you talk about cutting down on sugar, but does dark chocolate fall into that category? Can I still enjoy a little dark chocolate?
Oh, yeah, you can, because here's the thing, that when you cut down on sugar, what you want to do is you want to cut down on the ways that it makes it into your diet that you're really not aware of, right? The first thing I would tell people is don't buy any drinks that are actually sweet. Just drink water, right? Because what happened with the big boom in high fructose corn syrup is that all these sugary drinks became really cheap. And so everybody started buying, cans of juice, these little 12-ounce cans of juice or a sweet soda or something, and they literally have 40 to 50 grams of sugar in them. Even the protein drinks you find in most grocery stores, if you read the label, there's 56 grams of sugar in one protein drink, right? Those are the ways that your body overloads with sugar. But when you look at dark chocolate, especially when you look at 80% dark chocolate, that has less sugar in it because the higher the percentage of dark chocolate, the less sugar is actually in it. It's a little more bitter. And it does have some sugar, but there's benefits in that to your heart. And so it's kind of offset. If you're not doing all the other excessive things, then it's okay to have some dark chocolate.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Hey, Roger, I had a quick question. A lot of people are talking about the Resveratrol that's in red wine. You're like, well, what do I need to do anything else if I drink a glass or two of wine a day?
Well, actually, that whole thing with red wine is way overblown. You know that when they came out with that study, it really wasn't a study. It was really just an idea called the French paradox. They wanted to figure out why the French had fewer heart attacks, yet they consumed a much higher amount of saturated fat and butters and cheeses and all this different things in their diet, right? And so they decided it was the French paradox, and they just said it was resveratrol because that's the number one antioxidant in wine, right? Well, the reality is, though, they know that to get the benefits of a glass of red wine for your health, you only need to drink one a week or one or two at the most for a week to get the benefits for your heart. And after that, you're basically not getting much benefit out of it. And wine itself has a lot of sugar in it. So if you're drinking 2 or 3 cups of red wine a day and thinking you're doing something for your health, you're really not. It's probably better than drinking fruit juice, but still, it's not that big a benefit to your health. And if you're looking at resveratrol, which, by the way, is a very amazing antioxidant, it's great for your heart, it's great for your brain, memory. It even mimics going on a calorie-restricted diet. If you take 100 milligrams of resveratrol a day, your body responds to it in an anti-aging way, the same way as if you were going like 14 hours a day without eating food, meaning that you did a temporary fast from 6 o'clock at night till a certain time in the morning you didn't eat. So your body, that's called an intermittent fasting thing. So you get the benefits of that from resveratrol, but to get that much resveratrol out of wine, depending on the wine, you might have to drink 1,000 glasses of it. You know, we have that much resveratrol in one packet of Tianchi. Believe me, it's a much easier way to get it.
Well, that was my next question too, because I know resveratrol was, made known for the heart and enhancing heart health. Why did you add it in Tianchi? We just did that recently over the last, I think, year or so. What was your main reason for adding it to the Tianchi?
The main reason is because it probably per milligram as an antioxidant in its natural state, it has a much more pronounced effect than a lot of other antioxidants, and it has the most research on it for extending, let's say, the most research for improving brain health, which was my main concern because, Tianchi is an anti-stress and brain formula. It's really good for other things like heart disease. It's really good for any chronic condition in the body because it's an energy restorative, and it has herbs that restore your glandular system. It's really good for all your organs, but it also has a whole component of preventing aging of your brain. And resveratrol is one of the most important nutrients for slowing down typical aging in the brain. It gets rid of inflammation in the brain. It makes it up into your brain real easily, so it passes the blood-brain barrier. And it has this effect, which is one of the big things they've been studying in the last 5 to 10 years. It's something called telomeres, which is the cap on the end of your DNA. That cap shows when how fast you're actually aging. And so they can actually look at your DNA and see how much damage it's gone under or how fast you're aging by the length of the telomeres on the end of your DNA. And resveratrol is one of the few things that has been shown to actually stop the shrinking of your telomeres. And one of the biggest things is, the one they've really proved is the big thing with stopping telomeres from shrinking. It's dealing with stress, anti-stress things. So, it just combined well with our herbs in our program because we're all about slowing down that process and slowing down aging of the brain and being good for your heart and all these other aspects, and it fit right in with everything else.
Awesome. Well, Roger, got one additional caller online, ending in last 4 digits, 0582. Caller, you online?
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Now? Hi, Roger. It's Vita Solares. Remember we went shopping at Trader's Joe? You remember?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, hi. Hello, Roger. How are you?
Hello.
I came late because I was finishing something, so I'm going to listen to your replay. But I'm here now, so I have a question regarding your Tianchi.
All right.
Roger, I'm already taking some adaptogens. I don't know if I can mention the name. I'm taking some adaptogens, starting with
Right.
C. Will I ever do it if I added your product to that one? That's the first question.
What I would do is I wouldn't take them at the same time. I would take the Tianchi and then take your adaptogen, your other one, later in the afternoon or something.
So, and is there what is the possible side effect? Is there some later side effect? Is there a negative side effect of the
Here's the name. You can say the name of the herb. It doesn't bother me. What herb is it?
It's not herb. I'm taking Sayaga. You know that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not really an adaptogen. That's an antioxidant. So, but again, you don't. Yeah, but it's an antioxidant drink. So what you want to do with that is still, you don't really want to take it with Tianchi because Tianchi has a very high antioxidant auric value anyway. So take your Tianchi, wait a couple hours to 3 or 4 hours, because plant-based antioxidants, most of them clear out of your system within a couple, 2 or 3 hours. So then you take it in the afternoon or later in the day, because that way, one, you don't want to take too much nutrition at one time anyway, because your body can only use so much. So it's better to break things up so your body gets exposed to great things 2 or 3 times a day, right? Just like we eat food 2 or 3 times a day, well, the body, if you expose your body to some great nutrition 3 times a day, then it holds on and utilizes much more of it.
Okay, so can I just choose one if decided I'm just finishing the other one and try yours?
Yeah, well, ours is a different thing. Ours is an anti-stress brain thing. That's more just an antioxidant.
Okay, so really you're specific to anti-stress. But regarding
Specific
that one,
stress.
I have specific stress. So that means it will benefit also my telomeres, right? Is it gonna rebuild? Yeah. It's gonna rebuild my telomeres?
Yes, it's anti-stress things are really good for your telomeres. There's tons of things in the drink that are just for peaking brain activity, speeding up the brain's ability to process information, to access memory. All these things are happening with Tianqi and the specific nutrients in it.
Okay, got you. Thanks, Roger. And if
You're
I
welcome.
have to communicate to you, I will just go to HerbWorks.com or not RogerDrummer.
Yep. You can leave me an email at HerbWorks.com.
Thanks, Roger. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Roger, looks like we're going to wrap this up. Again, if you want to find out more about Tianqi and Inner Peace, you can go to Roger's company's website at HerbWorks.com. That's HerbWorks.com. If you have a specific question, you can always go to the bottom of the page, go to the contact button, and type in a question there. So we're going to be doing these calls. We switched them from Thursday to Monday evening, and we'll be doing them every week. So, Roger, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.